RIP. Today, it's our list of social media strategies that died in 2025.
So if you're still using these, it's best to stop.
Here's the good news though, saying goodbye to these formerly effective strategies means that you can refocus your effort and energy into what actually is working.
Let's dive in.
Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him Pastor Pinchy Crab Pinch. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello.
And today we are revisiting an episode format that we did in 2024, which was church social media strategies that have died.
Rest in peace.
Bringing them back for 2025. What is no longer worth your time, your energy, your focus, your commitment? And Alex, Pastor Pinchy Crab Pinch, let's kick it off with number one.
From dust these trends came, and to dust we send them to return. The first trend that has died. You just simply wrote down followers.
Yeah, followers. Okay, let's make this clear with data. I've been observing this for a while. We've talked about the changing eras of social, the previous era, the social graph era. Now we're in the discovery era. That's nothing new. That's been 5, 6, 7 years in the making. But the value of the follower on your account has been continually undervalued as we've transitioned from one era to the next. And let's just talk about some examples of this. I have on the main YouTube channel at Brady Shearer 154,058 subscribers as of this morning. If you look in the last 28 days of the views that we've received, 75.3% have come from non-subscribers.
Wow.
So despite a non-small amount of subscribers, 3/4 of the views in the past month have been from non-subscribers. That's on YouTube. On Instagram, similar amount of followers, 137,000. In the past month, 1.6 million views on Instagram, 51.6% are from followers. So just slightly more than half have come from followers. So this is not isolated to a single platform. All platforms have embraced the discovery algorithms. And what this has resulted in and translated to today is your content and what you publish. You have to think about your followers maybe almost second to the broad appeal and accessibility of your content overall. And I think this is a good thing. You know, it's easy to look at it negatively and be like, oh, like these people chose to follow me. Like I want to be able to reach them. But if we think about our own behavior on social, the reality is that as much as we might think this to be true, our behavior would suggest otherwise. We don't want to see every single new piece of content from a person that we follow. Certainly there are some accounts that this would, be different for, and perhaps I wouldn't be surprised if Alex would say to me, no, I only follow 8 people and I want to see only their content as an example. But there's a chef that I subscribe to on YouTube as an example, and he publishes new videos on Thursday. And I think if I met this chef in real life, I would say to him, oh wow, I love your stuff. Like I subscribe, I follow, I watch everything. And yet I would be one of the people in his audience that would be not watching on a month-to-month basis because my behavior for watching is to go and binge through 8 videos all at once when I feel like the need. But on a regular Thursday, when he publishes, it's probably not something that I need to watch right now in that moment. It's not like attention viewing. The only types of content that exist in culture that do that now are the shows that are increasingly less common. They're like the water cooler shows, where if you didn't watch it, you're not going to be keeping up with it.
Right.
So probably 2 shows in the zeitgeist right now at the time of this recording that hit that, Severance and the new season of White Lotus. Everything else, unless it's like a playoff game for sports, but even sports have become less attention viewing, we consume it on our own time. So what that means is, as soon as you publish something, if you're only going to publish it to your followers, they're probably not going to see it. So the discovery algorithms have said, okay, it's our job to identify who needs to see this specific recipe video about lasagna. Maybe Brady's not going to watch it for another couple of months, but there are people that care about lasagna right now. The likelihood that they follow this chef is low. So we have to get the content in front of them.
Right. And I hear what you're saying, and I agree, but for the pastors, the social media interns, the volunteers, the church staff that are listening to the show who are pastoring the average church in America, who are not, an internet chef who they're not trying to build their audience so that they can sell a cookbook. They're trying to do local ministry. And the posts that they post on Instagram, for example, are topical to the local ministry and the people that live in Minneapolis or Salt Lake City or whatever. What do we say to them to their social strategy as a local church, because they're not trying to sell a cookbook. They're not trying to grow an international brand. They're trying to serve the church in Salt Lake City. How does this intersect with the unique position of ministry online from a local church perspective?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish specifically. So if we're lamenting, in this case, our ability to reach followers on demand, then you just need to use different tools that social media provides for you. So for example, if on Instagram you're like, I would really like to publish a post and know that people that have opted in will see it.
Right.
There's two things that you can do. One, emphasize a broadcast channel.
Yes.
Where basically people are opting in to get updates from you specifically.
We've talked about this recently on the show.
Or two, ask people to put you in their like close friends or in the I forget what the drop down is called. There's like a specific, it's like show me first sort of thing. Look it up on Instagram, because there's following and then there's like this special category that you can like opt somebody into. And
Right.
so
Add to favorites.
add to favorites, right?
now.
So you can have, and
But I think
we-
it has been called different things at different times.
shocking. So unlike Instagram, and we made a slide on an episode in the past where we were like, hey, download this slide and show it in your like pre-roll at service, where it said, don't just follow us, but add to favorites.
Yeah.
And I do this for accounts. You know, I follow several hundred accounts. There are a few that I never want to miss an update for. So I've added them to favorites and I always see them.
Right.
So Instagram provides these tools. And this is what happens as platforms evolve, right? Like as a company that manages software. So Nucleus, our website builder for churches, is like 8 years old now. And like with every year that it's now getting older and growing up, you have to make decisions where you're like, people want this feature, but every new feature we add introduces complexity,
Right.
which makes it less easy to use. And we've all seen this on social, right? And this is
totally.
it's so difficult. You say, okay, I want the ability to reach, I'm a small account. I don't want to just be like limited because I'm a small account. I want to be able to reach the world. Okay, we've done that for you. But now my followers don't see everything.
Exactly.
Right, but
Yes.
oh, okay. Well, we'll create something. It's called favorites, but people don't know how to use that. I was like, well,
Yeah.
so you have to do a little bit of education, but those do exist, and I think the great thing about this for smaller accounts for churches is that you now are not limited by your physical
Right.
in-person presence. Like social, the great upside here, and we just discussed the downsides, the great upside is that you have the ability to introduce your church to people that have never heard of you, that are local to your church, because there are local components to the discovery algorithms. We've talked about this paradox. The best way to reach local is to reach viral,
Yeah.
right? If you just do the math, if you reach 100,000 people on a post and 1% are local, oh, great, that's 1,000 local people. If you reach 1,000 people on a post and 50% are local, oh, that's only 500 people.
Right.
And so the more people that you can reach, the more likely more of them are local to you.
Yeah.
And so that's the main feed. And then if you really care about the substance and the depth, that's what other platforms are for, or what other features within the social platforms are for. The worst thing that you can do is fight the tide.
Yes.
Fight the wave. You want to go with the wave. Don't be stubborn here and say, no, I want to reach everyone on the main feed without them choosing to put me in their favorites. It's like, okay, like you've just basically surrendered at that point. So understand what is no longer working. And that's the entire point of this episode. Like, it's so hard to do social because it requires vigilant effort every single week, and there are changes. So our job is to keep you informed of those changes, and then it's best to kind of just let it go. And as someone that is now approaching his mid-30s, turning 34 next month, like, it's kind of annoying seeing things that used to work no longer work, and me be like, right, but I'm at the center of the universe for social. And social's like, no, you're not, old man. They are. And I'm like, wait, so I have to learn what they're doing? They're like, yep.
Yeah.
Or just expect to only continue to reach your kind of existing people that want to be like you. And it's like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So there's good news there for churches that are feeling that frustration. There are features in these platforms. You don't have to go somewhere else to accomplish it. You can, but there are features baked into this platform to enable you to communicate to the folks who have chosen to show up for you and reach locally, in addition to the great possibility that we now have in the discovery era. So good news.
A good parallel example, because I feel like this is maybe the most important on our list of 5, is rule changes in sports. So every few years, a sport will introduce a rule change. And the commissioner and the league directors will make that change because they're trying to rectify something in the game that is not commercially viable
Yeah.
or is making the game not true to how it's meant to be. And what happens? You might hate the rule change, but if you are a competitor and want to win, you have to play with that new change. We saw this with the NFL when they made like defense a little bit more difficult. They're like, okay, you know what? We're not going to allow you to play this physical cornerbacks against wide receivers because we want big plays where
Points,
quarterback throws ball, receiver catches ball, score. Yay! That's exciting, not cornerback grabs and tackles. Like, boo, we don't care about that, right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't commercially viable. You can hate that as a true lover of the game, like, oh, I'm actually a big fan of defense, or you can hate that as a team that hasn't built their team that way. Great. You have to make changes. The rules have changed. The same is true for this entire episode. Rules are changing. We have to adjust.
Okay, this next one bothers me a little bit.
They're all going to bother us.
Well, yeah, this is another strategy that died in 2025. Publishing posts to your stories.
Yeah, this is just going to sink your reach
Yeah.
on your stories. We've done more experiments with this in the last few weeks, and we've seen the stark contrasts. It's challenging because one of the truisms, if that's a word, of social for its history has been, if they create a feature, it means they want you to use it.
You'd think.
But as we've just discussed, as social's been around for so many years, certain features that were created have now been leapfrogged by newer features.
Right.
So the reality is that, yes, there was a time when that was a feature worth using, but it has been since replaced in terms of effectiveness, but in the UI, it hasn't been replaced.
Yeah.
So you might look at a feature and say, oh, this feature exists. It's next to this feature.
I'm so sorry for that. I'm so
thank you, Lord.
sorry. Here, let's just listen to this for a second.
thank you,
No,
Lord.
Sorry. What I was trying to do was pull up the share tab in Instagram now to visualize how the share to your stories still exists, but it's been deprioritized.
Okay, so they have done that. That's nice.
Right. So like now when you click share, the first thing it wants you to do is share it with people. It shows you people you normally interact with. It wants you to start a DM conversation, which we've talked about at length on this show.
Yeah.
Adam Mosseri has come out and said, most interaction on this Instagram platform happens in private. It happens in DMs. So they're telling you, this is where we want you to share this. We don't want you to share this to your story, although you can still share it to your story from there. So the legacy functionality still exists, but like you use the perfect word, it has been leapfrogged by some new avenues where they're telling you, we want you to share this, just not here. We want you to share it somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's the same with adding like the link button to your stories.
Yeah.
That is also going to really just sink your reach. And you can do A/B tests and see it for yourself. When you do like the poll precursor strategy where you put a poll before the actual, substance of the post that you want to get to in stories and you make it multiple slides, you can see how much that actual engagement will surge your overall views. And then you can compare it to a link and see how little distribution it gets. This has been true for a couple of years. I've never seen it so transparently obvious that Instagram is just saying no.
Yeah, we just won't show this to people.
And there's no way to work around it. We're just not going to do it. And so you really don't want to publish a post and do that because not only will it hurt that specific thing you're trying to promote or you're trying to highlight, it's also going to detract from future posts. And this is the reality of social. Again, we are appreciative to Mosseri and Instagram because they are probably the most transparent with how the algorithm works. But they look for signals, and that determines reach, distribution. One of the signals is previous history. How have people interacted in the previous? So one of the best things that you can do is like when you want to promote something is like value, make sure you're delivering great content that everyone's liking and then promote because you'll have kind of built up that goodwill.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that promotion will come probably at a cost. And there is that sweet spot. We talk about the 1 in 5 rule that is probably leaning closer to the 1 in 10 rule as these algorithms become even more focused on the person watching and the fact that we don't want to see stuff that isn't like, hitting that dopamine center in our in our brains right away. It will come at a cost. That sweet spot, 1 in 5, 1 in 10. You can get away. You're not going to hurt your overall momentum and rhythm. But yeah, sharing to stories. It happened to me yesterday. There's a pastor I follow, and they had published something. And then I also saw that they were at the top of my stories. And I was like, oh. And I clicked it and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen.
It's the same post.
and it was.
Yeah.
And it was the exact same post.
And
I was
you
like,
swiping away from that so quickly is a signal to the algorithm that says, oh, we showed this to someone and they did not want to see it.
Yeah, you showed this to that person because like they were very engaged. And even they.
Yeah. And just to remind folks, the 1 in 5 rule is to say no more than 1 out of every 5 posts on social should be promotional in nature. And you alluded to it. We're coming into an era where maybe it's more applicable to be 1 in 10 as far as promotion goes. But we are tempted to share posts to our stories because we put thought and effort and intention, and there's a lot of value in the things we post to our grid. We can be really proud of them. They can be objectively great. And so the temptation is like, well, I want everyone to see this. And so I say that to lead us into the next one, which is choosing quantity over quality when it comes to the types of posts we are creating on social.
Yeah, it's an endless balance between the two. Always has been, right? Like, should I post more or should I post better? And the answer has always been both.
Yeah.
Which is not a helpful answer. So what that means is at all times, there should be, based on maybe an individual person's account that you could evaluate or macro trends, we should be able to look and say, okay, right now, if you had to err on one side or the other, it's probably better to go in the quality direction or the quantity direction. And what Alex just spoke to, the 1 in 5 rule, maybe becoming the 1 in 10 rule, speaks to what? The quality of content being that much more important.
Yeah.
As social has become that much more saturated because it is the coolest invention ever for reaching people. Like, imagine introducing your church to millions of people for free. No, that doesn't exist ever. So
It didn't exist 10 years ago. Right. Never mind 30 years ago at the advent of the internet.
So naturally, it becomes saturated because everyone's like, oh, cool, I want to do this, not just for my church, but for every institution and individual that cares about reaching people. And so what this means is the threshold for quality has continually been bumped up. And we talk about this internally, where we'll look at the YouTube videos that we're publishing and be like, if I was sorting today, our most popular YouTube videos, and the top like 10 are from many years ago. And I watched them and I'm like, this one, because it was less saturated.
Yeah.
And so like for that video to reach that high, it's because like maybe that was the only video that was talking about that specific thing. And nowadays, like we have to work that much harder to get the same reach or like turnout for the views.
And the quality is arguably the best it's ever been.
Right. The good thing is that the longer you're able to stay in people's lives, you do have that longevity of relationship. And so that is something that is really difficult to quantify, but does really make a difference. But right now, we are publishing maximum 5 posts per week on Instagram. A year ago, it was 4 posts per week. And a year or two before that, it was like 2 or 3. Because for me, there's a certain threshold where like, if I go beyond that,
The quality falls off.
it really does. And so like every year I endeavor to publish more content that maintains that level of quality, recognizing that level of quality on a slider is kind of needing to go up every single year. And so you can't remain stagnant. And so what that means is if you are listening and going, wow, I am despairing right now, it's okay to pull back a little bit on the quantity if you feel like, you know what, I need to push harder on the quality.
Right.
Or pull back a little bit on the quantity to ensure that you maintain that no weeks off rhythm, the singular non-negotiable of social. Because here's the good news. If we go back to followers don't matter in the same way that they once did, and I don't know if I'd go as far to say in the church space they don't matter, but like it's close. Like in some industries they just really don't matter. In the church space, because we're such a tight-knit community, they do matter, but of course it's being undervalued year over year. What this means is if you make something that is accessible to a broad audience, and that's not hard when we're pulling from the wisdom of Scripture for all people, for all time. If it's good, it will find its audience. And so that means if you publish 2 really good posts in a week and not 4 pretty good ones, those 2 could dramatically outperform the 4. And so this is like the endless evaluation that you do when you're creating social content, which is understanding your resources, which includes your creative energy and the time that you have in a given week. Recognizing, okay, here's what I'm trying to accomplish on social. Here are the parameters that I'm working on. Okay, Brady always talks about no weeks off, so that has to matter. Okay, and I have this much time and I have this much creative energy. Oh no, that only means 2 posts a week. It only means 4 posts a week. Like, that's okay. Keep the quantity, like unit static. Don't move that. And then adjust. As long as you're publishing, we have that floor of like twice per week. And this happens when we travel. You know, when we travel, like we were on the, 3rd annual Pro Church Tools retreat abroad recently. Like I had content ready to go. And then it was like 10 and I was like playing with a kid or I was at the pool or I was just lazing around. I'm like, I don't want to set up an automation and publish this because I don't schedule content. I was like, whatever. And I ended up publishing like 2 pieces of content in a week. Or we were at Disney and I was like, oh, like, I'm up at 6 and I'm in bed at 10 and like we're just walking all day and doing stuff like, I didn't get the post up today. That's all right. We publish twice per week, and so we maintain that. But understanding those 2, quality, quantity stuff.
Well, and you just said it. If you post 2 quality posts a week and prioritize that over posting 5, 6 low quality posts a week, you can trust that the quality posts are going to reach your intended audience. And so that eliminates the anxiety to be publishing your post to your stories just with some desperate hope that somebody's going to see it. Because if you choose to invest in the quality, the algorithm's going to respond to that and ensure that people see your post. You don't have to feel the anxiety to like share it to your stories and send it to all your friends and to make sure that everyone sees it.
And I do think we should provide an alternative to publishing posts or links to stories and say, don't do that. Be like, what should I do instead? Here's what I would do. So let's imagine, okay, this is going on in my church right now. We are releasing the registration for summer camp soon.
Okay.
Traditionally, what would we do? We'd publish a feed and we'd say, summer camps, link in bio. We then would share that post to stories with the goal of me seeing it either on the feed or on stories, clicking the post, reading link in bio, going to link in bio, finding it and signing up. Instead, here's what you could do. Create an Instagram story slide with a photo from summer camp and keep that in like the bottom third-ish of the graphic. And then the text could read, we just announced dates for summer camps this year. Reply, summer, and we'll send them to you. That's it. For me, I'm like, oh, great. All I have to do is reply summer.
It's one thing you have to do.
It's in the stories. It's a direct message. This is not me publicly commenting summer on a post and being like, I care about summer camp. Yeah. It's like completely anonymous and I get the details right away. I don't have to leave and navigate to link in bio, figure out which of the 8 links it is there and find it. And because that will trigger, and we talked about this in episode of a few look for the title, a social media hack that's actually helpful. We break this strategy down in full because that will trigger an actual conversation in the DMs between the church and me. That will be the signal that Instagram weighs more heavily than any other, which fast forward an hour, 2, 3, and suddenly everyone's receiving this church Instagram story. And now Alex, who despite being the pastor, actually
the church around the corner. I'm signing my kids up for summer camp.
He's like, why is Central's show? Clicks on it. Oh, summer camps. Summer. Don't tell anyone. And
Can't
now
see me.
Asher and Aiden. Oh, they're off to summer camp at Central as well.
Yeah.
And so like there are effective strategies and we just need to, and I get it. Like I was having this conversation recently and I was like, man, the stuff that I used to do used to always work. Now it doesn't. And I'm like, yeah. That's how everything has always worked forever. You were just young, and so you learned something, and it worked right away.
Right.
Now you have to like learn the new thing all over again, and it's not just like learning a new skill. It's learning the new skill in the area of expertise that you already have, which is like a little bit different. Like it's one thing to like, oh, I want to pick up snowboarding. I've never done that before. It's like if snowboarding was like, oh no, now instead of going like your strong foot forward, we all ride sloppy. Yeah, you have to. It's like, but I don't want to. Sorry, this is the rules now. We get it. It's tough.
Hey, all the more reason to subscribe to this show. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to this show.
Wow.
In your podcast feed of preference, because that's part of our function, our role in this space is to stay on top of these things and put together strategies, frameworks to help the regular church staff or volunteer who is feeling behind on all of these changes and algorithms and all of these things. That's what the show is for.
Yeah.
So, okay, talk to me about the next one. Ignoring the value of the repost.
This has saved me in the past year, and I just want more people to do this. So what I did this last year, one of our social media mantras is repeat the best, forget the rest, continue to test. Repeat the best used to mean you found a framework that works for you, return to it. So if you're a church and your best performing sermon reel ever was talking about parenting content, it's like, oh, here's what the Bible says about parenting. 2 words you should never say as a parent, and it's based in the wisdom of Scripture. Okay, next time there's a sermon with any type of parenting content,
clip it.
Yeah, clip that and bring that to social. It has become literally publish the same post again because speaking back to that first RIP trend of followers not really mattering, what that also means is like every post is kind of like grab the lever, pull it, and see who you're reaching.
Yeah.
And this was first true on TikTok. It is now true everywhere. And I have enough data that I'm confident in saying this, that at the end of last year, I went through all of our posts on social and I looked for like the top 20 in each format. So top 20 reels, top 20 carousels. For carousels specifically, I wrote down the top 20 high performing. And sometimes I would base it on high performing based on shares. Sometimes it was likes. Sometimes it was views. Sometimes it was saves. but I found the top performers and I wrote them down in a note called Repeat the Best in Evernote. And any day I wake up or on vacation, I'm like, I have nothing to post today. I look in my Repeat the Best and I see the ones I've already done and I find it and then I publish it identically all over again.
Yes.
And if you think to yourself, man, but like people see it again. Okay. Here's the point I'm about
Literally
to make.
no.
I'm about to put someone on blast. Okay.
Is it me?
It's not you.
Okay, thank God.
This is John Rush, who is a youth pastor and has 18,000 followers on Instagram. Good guy. At John W. Rush.
Good guy, not great memory.
Because the post that I reposted this week, because we were just coming home from the retreat, was best youth group social accounts. As of right now, it's got like 2,600 likes in the first day. And it has, like that's good.
It's
in the first
doing
day.
well, yeah.
One of the top comments from John. Well done. The reason this stood out to me is because the last time I posted this was the last time John commented on one of my posts. Because we mutually follow each other.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I always
yeah.
see his notifications
Sure.
at the top. And the last time I posted this, he was like, great work. So either...
That's not his fault, right?
And maybe he's seen it before, and he's
Yeah,
but,
sure.
but the overall point
Yes.
is that what's more likely is that this content just resonates with him.
Yes.
And I knew this, I was confident this was going to be a banger. Like, we all know the feeling. We're like, this is a great post, and then it's crickets. You're like, what? We also know the feeling. We're like, oh, this is a throwaway. That's the one that you all like. It has been so comforting knowing I have this bank of 20 posts and I only use them when I need them. We use them a lot coming out of Pro Church Certified because I'm making so much content around the launch of a new product that then I'm like, I got to post a feed as well. So you lean into that inventory of content, you recycle it, and you're guaranteed to like do well with it. I actually used it as a build up to Certified because I was like, if I want to get as many eyeballs on Certified as possible, ProChurchCertified.com, join the waitlist for 2026. I'll need to like have a string of good content. And
Just play the hits.
I was like, you know what? Sometimes you go in, you're like, this is going to build momentum. And it doesn't. You're like, oh no, I'm not building momentum for this launch. Oh no. So instead, you got Easter coming up. Just like recycle the hits from last year and then do the Easter promo on stories using the exact framework we just said. We're like, comment, whatever, and you'll get like more information about Easter. And now you're really starting to cook with gas because you're not fighting the wave, you're riding.
Totally. Folks like you and I who produce content in niche spaces, Digital for Churches, me, Specialty Coffee, and certainly others who are listening to the show, we know the feeling where it's like, okay, I've got a lot of good things to say about the thing that I have to talk about, but I'm not really sure what else I have to say. I've said a lot. Like,
yes.
You've been doing Pro Church Tools for 13 years. I've been writing about Coffee Online for 10 or 12. It's like, what else do I really have to say? And we're getting into our mid-30s. Like, we believe what we believe. So it's like, what else do I have to say? And in the coffee space, I love, one of my strengths is publishing recipes for brewing coffee at home, and it's been some of my best performing content. But I'm the type of person to try to find recipes that are replicable for folks and repeatable. Once I figure it out, it's like, that's it. That's the recipe. You kind of hit a ceiling. Other folks in the specialty coffee space, they'll start doing crazy stuff with citrus. They'll be pouring their coffee through a grapefruit rind or whatever. And it's like, okay, in that world, the opportunities for new content are endless. But for me, it's like, well, I have a go-to recipe and it goes off. So every year or so, I'll just like repost that exact same recipe. Lately, because of the conversations you and I have had about this very specific topic, I've been posting not just the same content, but the same, not just the same like copy, but the same creative that I posted a year ago, like literally copy paste. And it goes off because it's what I have to say about that thing. People resonated with it the first time. And so they resonate with it again, especially in a discovery era, because Instagram is going to show it to a whole new host of people who are not the 18,000 people who currently follow me. The one question I have is, what do you think the minimum amount of time elapsed should be for a church to replay a hit?
For me, I keep it at 6 months.
Okay.
Ideally a year, but I'll look at the previous published date and I'm like, it's been 6 months, good enough.
And especially if you're posting 3, 4, 5 times a week, 6 months of that.
But even if
weeks,
you're not, people are seeing a million posts.
Totally.
Like, that was my first thought as
Yeah.
well. It's like, okay, my posting volume matters. No, it actually doesn't. It's the behavior of the user that matters.
Yes.
And they're going to see just as many posts in between, whether it's, 6 months and you published 8 times, or it's 6 months and you published, 800 times.
Yeah. Okay, let's bring it home. The fifth church social media strategy that has died is ignoring consistent branding.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is another little bit of a 180. I'm going to start by saying, no, it's not what you think. Like the grid aesthetic still, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But this is like a complete 180 from what used to work in like the late 20.
I remember that era
Aughts?
so clearly.
So we go with the aughts or the 20,
Yeah.
late aughts. The whole thing was you only reach your followers
Yes.
ever.
So
And
you got to
like,
switch it up somehow.
bet you
Post
never
something
seen a post
crazy.
like this. What is this? Oh, it's Brady again. He stopped
He
my
got me.
scroll.
Yeah.
Got him. So what stops the scroll nowadays? Familiarity.
Yeah.
Because everything you see on your feed is from creators and from accounts
Ads.
that you've chosen not to follow.
Yes.
Ads. You see something that you like. You see someone you know. Oh, finally.
Yeah.
An anchor of familiarity in this feed of chaos.
And you're probably going to talk about this, but your carousel posts are so effective at this because you've been posting the same carousel post design framework for now years, like more than 1 year. They look the same. They feel familiar so that when I'm scrolling on my feed or I open Instagram for the first time and your post is the first one up there and I recognize it as, oh, I know this is Brady Shearer because it's the color, it's the style. I feel comfortable to stop my scroll and pay attention to what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and the same is true of shooting in our studio.
Yep.
When I put the yellow text behind me. We've experimented with me standing in different parts of the office, but we're going to mix it up. And the posts perform measurably worse consistently because people don't immediately recognize it as me. And if you're delivering quality content, every time you see the carousel that I publish or me in the studio, if you like what I do, you're likely to stop because you're like, you know what? Last time this visual cue triggered, I paused and I found value in it. So if I have to choose between this post and a bunch of others that I don't recognize, I'm more likely to stop here because I recognize this and I know value is going to come from it. And so that's where the branding of your format can actually be really good. I liked one of my friends in the creative space that does this is Nick Goodner. So he built a studio last year, and now he's kind of like in this like studio with like this baby blue backdrop, and he always films there. And last year he shifted his content approach a little bit, but like his account went from like 10,000 to like 200,000 followers in a year on Instagram because he was consistent, but because he stayed in that same format. And so he built this familiarity with his audience that he was growing because people saw his stuff. And then the next time they saw it, as they found him from a viral reel, they saw him again in the exact same spot. And he was like, they're like, oh, you know what? That's familiar.
Yeah.
That is actually good. I want that. So this is where you have to understand the tide or the wave. And are you like going with it or are you going against it? Before late aughts, everything you saw was familiar. You never saw something strange. And so if you wanted to reach people, you kind of had to do something different because it was just the sea of familiarity.
Yeah.
So you had to be different. Well, now it's this sea of difference, so you need to be familiar. And this is kind of like going against the negatives of the current state of social. And so investing in this can be useful. We have to work for it at our company. You as a church don't, because you have a pastor who is the same pastor as the previous week in the same stage.
Yeah.
And so you can build this consistent brand just because the building itself is the brand. And so you don't have to like work really hard and be like, we're going to construct a studio. No. Like you already have it baked into the rhythm of church. And so it is a strength to lean into.
In addition to that, to the sermon clips, same pastor, same stage, a few more strategies I could think of off the top of my head is the carousel text post, which is like honing in on a comfortable, clean carousel aesthetic that you can repeat maybe once a week or once every other week, whatever pace kind of fits your church and your social strategy. Another one is like your pastor does a good job of this, Pastor Bill. He'll do like these talking head reels. And so if your pastor is comfortable doing that or that's part of your social strategy, just like shoot it in his office every time. Like don't move him around the building. Like just shoot him in a place where it can be predictable, it can be familiar, if that type of content is resonating with your audience. But yeah, it's so funny that 5, 6, 7 years ago, something was very true. And now here we are, and the opposite, like the literal inverse, is just as true. And that's not because anyone was wrong back then. That's just the tides of the algorithms that we're all just like trying to ride here. You know, yeah. You just have to remain adaptable, I guess, as these platforms adapt, which they do at rapid pace. Adam Mosseri is talking about changes to the grid and customizing your grid and how it shows up. So I'm sure we'll have even some more changes to talk about later on into the year and how people interact with your posts and what they see on their feeds. But as for today, this is the State of the Union, I guess.
And it's not just social. This is true of every industry. To go back to our sports metaphor, from previous. I am not an expert in football, but I've heard it talked about in the context of like the Kansas City Chiefs as they were working on, like building this dynasty. Is that like when they had the team that first kicked it off, they were known for just like these deep threats. You got Tyreek Hill streaming down the field and Patrick Mahomes, this young gun with this huge arm, and he's just throwing it and he's throwing it to Kelsey. And so like the defense was like, okay, what we need to do is like we need to stop this team from going deep. Now all you can do is just like dink and dunk. You're gonna get 4 yards here, 6 yards here, 7 yards here. Why is that not gonna work? Because the more times you do something little like that, the more likely one of them is going to go wrong. And there's going to be a fumble. There's going to be an interception. There's going to be a sack. Whereas if you had like these, huge throws, you can score in like one throw. Yeah. And so then what the Chiefs did was, okay, that's how you're going to defend us. They became experts at these small yardage plays. And then it kind of like went again and it changed again. And that's true like if you're playing tennis and you know the strength of your opponent, you're going to like sit on that strength and try to force them into their weakness. Okay, your basketball opponent has a dominant right hand, force them left. And so then it's this constant cat and mouse game. And that is true of marketing as well. It always has been. If something's working, what do? We spam it. We saturate it. And then people subconsciously get used to it and it stops losing its potency. Right. It's lost that. So what do? We find a new avenue and we repeat it. And so again, that's why it's worth following along because we are in the job of keeping you appraised on what's happening and what's working. So we will be back again next Wednesday. We'll talk to you then. Thank you for your time, attention, and trust.
We went to Counterpart and Linda said, "You guys look beautiful." And my honest response was, "We do."
Yeah.
I said it out loud. I'm like, I know. Like we just do.
Facts.
We had so many comments from the grocery store today saying you guys must have just come home from vacation because they not like us.
No.
Most of our homelanders do not look like us currently.